the amazing recording. Oh, he's in the back of the room. Hey, Kevin. I think Kevin, everybody, he's the one that set up all the recording and is going to make this really amazing. This is the third time this month I've gotten to use his amazing equipment from Texas camp, Twin Cities Drupal here. What was the other camp you did?
Montreal.
Montreal. I did not make it to Montreal, unfortunately, but Kevin did. All right. You didn't come here to talk about Kevin Fall. Maybe you did, but we're here to talk about nobody wants a website. They want results. Actually, let's off the exclamation point on the title slide. But quickly, I'm Dwayne. I work at a place called Pantheon. I'll get back to that in a second. But I have been working in sales and marketing, stumbling my way through that space for the better part of the last 15 years of my life. And I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way along the way. And I've also worked with a ton of agencies along the way at my current role and just over the years in various positions I've had. So that's why I feel qualified to give this talk about all the sales process I got beaten to my head over the years and things I learned the hard way. If you ever want to talk to me about anything else outside of tech, these are areas that I really enjoy, especially karaoke. People know me, they know I love going to karaoke. If you want to get a hold of me, my favorite way to get a hold of me is Twitter. I love Twitter. All my slides and everything else about me is out on my website, MC Dwayne. I wish the same as Twitter handle. And I have this project this year. It's actually going to show up that well. I'm going to stand on this desk maybe. If I get somebody to get a picture of me, like in front of this picture, that would be awesome.
I got you.
Thanks, man. Put it on Twitter or whatever. I'll take a lean in the picture. I'll lean this way.
I'll take it. Oh, it's pretty funny.
Thanks. I'm just going back all the way to the beginning of the year. I'll make an animated GIF by the end of the year. They're not organized at all, so I have no idea how I'm going to find them. I started organizing about 2 pictures ago. All right, got to get down and not kill myself and not get sued by Drupal or Status Center. Awesome. I work at Pantheon. We have a booth literally right behind that wall. We have t-shirts, some sizes left. A microphone. And sunglasses. But also, we do professional hosting for any size website and awesome tools. Any workflow you can imagine, we can figure it out with you. That's me. Quick plug for Pantheon. Does anyone here not know Pantheon, just out of curiosity? Awesome. Well, happy to introduce you to it out in the hallway. But otherwise, I want to know who is in the room. Does anybody here consider themselves a full-time developer? Awesome. Anybody here consider themselves a full-time designer? Should all know each other, the developers and designers of the world. Anybody do everything, every hat in the company kind of role?
Even janitorial.
Even janitorial. That cook and bottle washer is not a misnomer. Does anybody here do project management? Awesome. Turned out this talk is actually maybe for you. I didn't originally write it for project management, I'll be honest. But as I've done this talk over the years, or over the last year, it's really dawned on me that that's who really wants to engage in this conversation the most. But why am I talking about this topic? Well, I didn't start out talking about, nobody wants a website, until I gave a talk in 2017 at WordCamp Baltimore. I talk at WordCamps as well. And somebody in the audience gave me one of those comment questions that was more of, I think a website does this. And it really took me aback, and I said, I respectfully disagree. I don't think a website does that. I think a website does whatever a website does, because nobody really wants a website at the end of the day. They want whatever that website gives them. And half the room did this. And the other half of the room did this. And I said, somewhere in between these two, there is a conversation to be had. And that's what I'm really hoping to do today. So I do not have an hour of material. I don't quite have 30 minutes of material. I can stretch it if you really want, but I want to have a conversation because collectively there are 20-ish, 30 people in the room. I can't count. But there's this many people in the room. And for those of you at home, it's between 20 and 30. I'm not counting. But you have collectively in your heads more life experience than I do. That just has to be true. And you have to have experience in the space just more than I do. That just has to be true. So I want to get that knowledge out of your head and lead a conversation at the end instead of doing a traditional Q&A. But before we get to that, anybody want a sandwich? I need a volunteer for this one. A little bit interactive.
Oh, I'll take one.
Yay! In the back?
Sure.
Okay. What's your name?
Mickey.
Mickey. Mickey needs a sandwich. And before we get to the sandwich itself, which I don't have a physical sandwich, sorry. It works better in a picture, I found out doing this. But that's quickly agreed that this is what a sandwich typically is. And here is a sandwich. And if I gave this to you, would you be happy with that sandwich as meeting the definition of, you're hungry, you want something to eat, here's a sandwich.
No, I'd have to get rid of a couple of ingredients.
So, don't say anymore, I know exactly what we're doing. It's open face, let's close it up, put some actual mustard on there. Would you be happy then?
No.
And what if we took off the cheese? I hate cheese myself, so get rid of the cheese, would you be happy then?
Almost.
See, we're getting closer. But it's also made of plastic. So probably, I used to use Play-Doh, but somebody pointed out you can eat Play-Doh. And that doesn't meet the definition of what you wanted. Most times you say, I want a sandwich. You walk into Subway and they give you a piece of plastic. It's like, no. But I think that's kind of what we do a lot in this space. Instead of saying, what do you really actually want? We say, oh, no, how to fix that. I hear what you're saying, but I can fix this. We'll just make these modifications and, at the end of the day, we'll fix it. And that doesn't get us to where we really want to be. If you come to my talk tomorrow on Discovery, you'll see this slide again. My expectations for this slide that would say the word expectations and results. And it does. For the designers in the room, I'm sorry, you probably noticed it doesn't exactly match those expectations of a really well-made piece of art for a slide. It doesn't really matter here or there. This is what we're doing. A process to get expectations and results to line up. And that's what we're really spending all of our time today. And if you come back tomorrow for our Discovery talk, what will we be doing then? Because if you don't line up expectations and results, things get funky. Like if you say, I want a red monster with googly eyes holding a cane, yeah, I can deliver that. But man, that would be a horrifying birthday party. And people, it's great to Google nailed it. If you've never Googled nailed it, that hashtag, it's hilarious. And Pinterest fail. But people get mad about this stuff. It's not just that, hey, you messed up my cake. It's, wow, you ruined my business.
No.
And people get pretty up in arms about this. And unfortunately, this leaves not just ourselves, not just our world and our direct work. It has a reverberating effect. It has a wave effect. If you just throw a puddle into a pond, it affects the area of water you hit and directly below it, but it also affects everything else around it. And not to horrify anyone, but this is an actual quote, slightly paraphrased, but from an actual CMO who works in Silicon Valley, a friend of mine. We were having drinks one night, and he was talking about this $500,000 project that he's doing. And just complaining about everything the developers have done. And said, Dwayne, the problem is they just don't take their fiduciary responsibilities seriously. We pay them a lot of money, and they're delivering stuff, but they never at any point ask us what would really actually get the job done, what would actually satisfy the results. How many people want to bet that a CMO working in Silicon Valley knows other CMOs working in Silicon Valley? How much do you want to bet that if they had a project come up with the same firm to do a $500,000 project, they would get any kind of referral or recommendation? Probably not. And that's ultimately the goal I'm trying to help illuminate, is to, let's get people to take this seriously. And I think there's a process to that. And it starts with this guy. This guy is you. I Googled developer, and this came up. So this could be any role, honestly. Because we're sitting there thinking we're doing this. I'm doing this thing. I'm hired on this contract to do this job, whatever this is to you. This is development, this is design, this is whatever, project management, whatever. But to clients, they tend not to see that. I work for a hosting company. They still don't even see us as a hosting company. They see us as a lot of things. And it's more an amalgamation of this stuff. And just as this is pulled from all random parts of the internet, that's how they're getting their ideas. Of all random things they've read, other experiences they've had, thinking that, hey, you know internet stuff, you must know all internet stuff. So I need all of these other things as well. And it's fine. You can do all those things. But I think if we really step back with those folks when they start asking, like, can you do this and this and this and this, and say, well, it doesn't sound like you actually want someone to design you a chair. You want a human suspension system. That's a very different thing. But there's a lot of freedom in this. There's a lot of freedom in the fact that I'm not just building you a website. We're going to build a lead generation engine. We're going to build a public interest forum. We're going to build something fun together that does what you want it to do. But if all I sell is chairs and you don't think you need a chair, well, you're not going to buy my chair. All right, let's get to process time. I keep saying the word process. Let's get to it already. Who here has ever seen a project funnel like this before? Or a sales funnel? Follows a funnel. For those of you who have not, really quick breakdown. If this is a sales funnel, I'll use sales funnel first because that's where this came from. If everyone in this room gave me their email address, you would all be leads. And then through some form of qualification, I would figure out if you need the thing that I can sell. And if you say yes, you meet those qualifications, then we go through a discovery process. I write you a proposal, you sign the thing, go through procurement, you give me money, I deliver the thing, and then at the end of the day, we maintenance and back at the top to lead funnel again. This also works for projects. There's so many things you can do in the day. Actually, go back to it. There's so many things you can do in the day, but there's only so many hours. And you got to figure out what's the thing that actually you're going to spend time on. What's going to give you actual results. It follows the same kind of process. At the end of the day, you can only spend so many hours doing a thing. And that's the delivery part. Getting there, even if you're an internal organization, even if you're a higher ed university, higher education facility, or you work for a nonprofit that doesn't really sales driven at all, it's the same thing. You only have so many hours in the day to divide up. And that's what all this is about. So spending time on things that you can actually drill into and deliver, it's important to spend a lot of time on delivery. It's not that important to spend time on the first parts. It's important to fine-tune your processes so that that's a mechanical process, the science of the sale, the science of the project, versus the art, the actual implementing the things you need to implement. Making the PHP dance. The qualification part, going from a lead to a qualified lead to figure out, is this possible thing that I could possibly have on my agenda? Is this something I should worth exploring and doing a discovery phase and a round of research on if we're working internally? Well, I think that answer to that is, well, the qualification process. Again, I view this from the world of sales and marketing more than I do from project management, but I think it applies directly. In sales, we have this thing called BANT. Who here has ever heard of BANT? Well, now you have. Budget, authority, need, time frame. That's the 4 basic parts you need for a sale to happen. If these things aren't present, a sale can't happen. Same thing is actually true of an internal project. If these things are not true, then that project is not going to happen. If it's a project we're going to get done sometime in the future, there's no drop-dead date on it, well, that project's never going to get done. There's other ways to do this. I learned SCOTSMAN in sales trainings I've taken over the years. I think it's a little more thorough, a little better, but it's the same basic parts. And there's one that's on all of them, other than money, and that's need. We'll come back to need in a second. BANT should be a completely mechanical process. If you're spending time handwriting emails, saying artisanally crafted sentences to people to figure out if they have enough money to pay you to spend for a discovery process and delivery, you're kind of doing it wrong. It should be a mechanical process where you can crank a gear and they get an email back that says yes or no. My favorite example of this is, I gave this talk at Stanford. Someone's like, yeah, I have 20 questions, literally 20 questions on my intake form. To contact her, to do work with her agency, you have to fill out a 20-question survey. They're all open text boxes. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not worth your time. But the clients that come through that have their questions answered, or at least I don't know and I need some help figuring this stuff out. But if we can't get back to like this mechanical device of lead comes in, yes or no, moving on. Because you want to get to know as fast as possible. I think the secret to getting no isn't the money. That's an easy no. As a salesperson, I can tell you that's the only one I cared about. And that bit me in the back a lot. Do you have the money to pay for this? Maybe. Okay, we'll go ahead with that. Do you have the authority to pay for this? Yes or no? Okay, yeah, you can write me a check. Or you can introduce me to the person that can write me a check. Okay, that makes sense. Timeline? That's important, but if that moves, that moves. I used to work in the Java middleware space, and those were like 6 to 18 month sales cycles. Depends on the project. But yeah, whatever, you got a timeline that works. Need, well, you're talking to me. You obviously need what I'm selling. This is the shortcut every salesperson takes, ever. Do you actually need this thing? Is there something we can actually provide that's valuable here? And this actually isn't that hard to define. Because a need is really the goal of the thing they're actually trying to get to. And the good thing about goals is there's a whole science around them called SMART goals. And you can look this up, there's books about it, a lot of interesting reading. I actually think it's out of order personally, but the way I think it should be spelled doesn't spell a word. Time bound, super important. If you don't have a drop dead date, you don't have a project. Is it attainable? Can you do it? Yes or no? If you want me to build a bridge, the answer is no, I cannot do that. You want me to build your website? Maybe. Maybe you can do that, depending on what you need. Is it specific? Have you written down on a whiteboard and everybody said, that's the thing we need to do? If not, then you probably don't have a specific goal in mind. The last two, though, measurable and relevant, those are the hardest ones to crack. And those are where we're going to spend the rest of the time today, is looking and thinking about that. Relevance actually is super hard, because you need to understand your business enough to say yes or no, I think this is relevant for you, and the bigger picture of your business. And a lot of times, well, we can't get into that. Like, we just don't have time for that. But measurable is the one we have to take time for. Measurable is the one that tells us if we want or not. Measurable is the only thing the board of directors cares about at the end of the day. If we can measure it, then we can start improving it. Then we can make incremental changes to improve the thing. So there's fortunately, in our space, a known term called the KPI. Who here uses KPIs or defines KPIs on every project? Good. That's a good number of people. I've had nobody raise their hand in that before. So key performance indicators sound overly technical, and I think marketing people made the term overly technical for unknown reasons. But all it means is that, hey, something's happening that we can, yes, confirm that is actually performing correctly. So I have the back of a monitor here. I have a little Apple light. Is it on or off? And what does that indicate traditionally what with the Macintosh?
It's on.
Yeah, how do you know it's on?
The light's on.
Yeah, that's the key performance indicator that the Mac's on. It's that simple. Like, how do we know the lights are on in this room?
They're on.
That's it, yeah. The answer to that is yes. It's a one check box. It happened. That's all a KPI really is. It's something we can say very quickly, look at and say yes or no. How many leads are we getting through the site per month? We'll get into all like different examples of them, but that's all we really mean is like, how is this one thing we're looking at doing against expectations? So that goes back to BANT. I think this actually gets built into BANT. It does in a good process, because this goes back to need. And here's a question I'm almost guaranteeing no one has ever asked a client ever on the first call. But I'm suggesting that you start. Because if you ask the client, do you have your KPIs defined for this? And they say, I'm glad you asked. Here's my spreadsheet, and here's exactly where I want to be in 6 months, and here's exactly where we need to be in a year. Is that going to be a good or bad project in general? Good, yes. Thank you. Because they'll have it so well defined that you know 100% if you are hitting those numbers or not as soon as those numbers start rolling in. Now, if they say, yes, we have this defined, move immediately on to discovery, find out exactly what they specifically need, and dig into the root, like the meat of it, so you can build them an actual proposal. Because that means they are so qualified that they probably should have been working with you already. But if you ask them, do you have your KPIs defined, and they look at you like this, they probably don't even know what their business does. Like, so many people do not know what their business does. They know what product they sell, but they don't know how their business runs. They don't know how all of that operates. Now, you could, I'm not saying there's a right answer to this, you could step back and say, well, you don't need a developer right now. Change your hat out and say, you need a business consultant. And help them figure out what the heck that means. There's money in that. There's some good money in that. If you're working on a large enough team, you might have someone on staff that specializes in this. If you're doing it by yourself, maybe this is a referral. I don't think there's a right answer to this. It's what's right for you and your business. But it's important to ask them, well, what are we actually measuring here? Because most people will not have a KPI defined, let's be honest. If you ever find that client, please tell me, because I've never heard anyone actually find that client on the first try. But a lot of people can actually answer this. So what are we even measuring here? What's the actual goal, and what are we, at the end of the day, what are you going to measure this against? Because I can't measure happiness. That is an impossible metric to measure in a project. Are you happy with the background color on your website? Who knows? I don't know. Are we getting 30% more leads per month because we made these changes to your website? There's a yes or no answer to that. Now, here's where it gets really, really complicated. If you thought everything else was easy up until now. I think everyone I've ever asked would generally agree these are generally good metrics for a web team to have. I know this because I Googled web team metrics, and this is what Google told me repeatedly, was, yeah, these kind of, and so on is a legitimate metric. But here's the unfortunateness. Most of the time, our work is driven by marketing teams who want websites for marketing reasons. And their KPIs look something like this, which are definitely not a one-to-one ratio. And I got further bad news. The marketing team only can function because there's a sales operation in place. And the sales team cares about stuff like this, which is very different than this, which is very far removed from this. And like, this gets even worse, because the board of directors and the people that actually run the companies, they care about stuff like this. Which, again, you can kind of look at this and this and this and say, okay, well, it's kind of all in there. But these are completely separate KPIs. Again, same methodology, found all of them. KPIs for fill in the blank, and that's what I got. Now, there is math you can do. And if you have a data scientist on a team, or you want to be a data scientist, the average salary in America for a data scientist starting is like 140 a year, 120 to 160 a year. So if you want to switch professions, and really love math and using the language R, then maybe you can go for it. Because, don't use these verbatim, please, but there is some kind of methodology you can put in place, some algorithm of, here's website metrics, and they kind of lead up to this KPI. And we're going to fine-tune these metrics. If we fine-tune performance, then this number should go up. And, oh, that wheel didn't work, let's turn this other knob and see what that does. A/B testing and all that good stuff. And eventually you can even build the case to say, hey, we can help meet your actual business goals. And that's being backwards track this to like, if we help these marketing goals and these sales goals, which I can prove through all these marketing, or all these website metrics that we're putting together for you, eventually you'll hit your business goals. This is foolproof? No. That's why you have the about symbol in there instead of an equal sign. But you can do this. Again, do you want to? Or do you want to refer them out to somebody that specializes in it? Now, if you're internal to a company and your boss simply says, hey, figure this out, well, figure it out. If you're, say, just do the work order, just do the work order. But if you have the chance to step back and say, what are we even measuring here? What are we doing? How are we figuring this out? That's when you should step back and decide if you should change hats or not. Or just put your hat on, it's like, all right, I'll do whatever you told me. Not up to you if the project wins or not. Go back to this for a second. Again, I'm talking about measuring things and really business analysts. That's where I was digging into at the front here. But our qualification process should also include questions around the other bits as well. Again, I focused on business analysts and the need or the measurability of the results because that drives everything. If we can't measure it, they will never win. There is no win in sight. But the other pieces, well, they really matter too. And I think it comes down to a question of what's your plan around. Again, these are like 3 questions you can ask. Do you have KPIs defined? All right, we don't. All right, no problem. What are we trying to measure? And then what's your plan around? And then just fill in the blank. Because content strategy is not part of development. I don't know how many people in the room think that it is, but I guarantee you 90% of the people outside of this room think it is. If you say, I want a website, they think you're going to write their content. I've gotten out of a lot of my friends' website work by simply saying, what's your content strategy? And have them blankly stare at me, and then I explain the content strategy, and then I never hear from them again. Credit to my sister, I built her a website only because she came back 2 months later after we had this conversation, and she built a content strategy. And she's blogging on a regular basis now. She's doing awesome. But wouldn't have worked with her otherwise. Design services? I am not a designer. Every slide I've taken, I have borrowed from somewhere else. And proud to do so. Thanks, Google. But there's beautiful design work out there. How many clients have ever just expected you to make up every image and icon and every picture that's going to be on that page and just you're going to own all the rights to it? And why don't you just buy that stock image and then the whole legal world of who actually owns what when? But if a client says, well, no, I have an internal design team and we have all the stock images like already bought, like here's the folders and here's access to our designers. Much different project. People that think project management's a magical thing that just happens. There's a lot of those people in the world. But what's your plan around project management? They say, oh, we want you to run this project wholeheartedly and you will be in charge and we will trust you every step of the way. That's a magical unicorn that doesn't exist either. They might say we have an internal project manager and we'd like you to use their methodology. That's cool. Maybe. I don't know. I can't tell you what to do with your business. I can't say, though, it's up to you to ask these questions and have a mechanical process at the beginning where when someone comes in and says, hey, I want you to do work for me, you say, here's my basic questions about this. And if they have no clue, they have failed your qualification. Or you can further qualify them to do these other lines of business. Because if you just want to do one thing, you just wanted to be a developer, you just wanted to be a designer, that's cool. Do that. But know that when they're hiring this, they're trying to hire everything else. At the end of the day, when someone says, I want a website, they're not really saying I want a website. They're saying, I want to hit this goal that I have in my head. And if that goal is very vague, there is no way you can ever hit that. If we got in a car and I just started driving west, you said, where are we going? I'm like, west. That's not a good answer. If I said, we're going to Des Moines, Iowa, to a hot dog eating contest, you might say, I'm getting out of the car now. Or you say, let's go for it. Those are very specific differences. Hey, nobody really wants a website. They want the results it gives them. I think that boils down to this one specific thing, because this is things you can measure. Again, I'm Dwayne, I work at Pantheon. My slides are mcdwayne.com, and I'm on Twitter at mcdwayne. And now I'd like to have a conversation with you. Yes?
I've got 2 questions. First, the hot dog eating contest. What's your KPIs for hot dogs?
Number consumed per minute.
Okay, excellent.
I don't eat hot dogs, by the way. Just to let you know. I just the first one came to mind.
So now my serious question. I have a difference of opinion with the BANT as a mechanical process.
Sure.
As like the starting communique with a potential client. I think that varies by service that you offer, whether you're a product company or a services company.
Okay.
It's good to put a client through a hurdle to make sure that they validate and qualify themselves as a strong lead. But I think that relying on that to be like a large form field that they have to fill out may not set the relationship the way that industry expects. I've got a rich history of working in agency life, and those relationships, if I had forced people through forms, I would not have worked with, like state tourism companies,
Sure.
or like, the utility companies, or all of the big engagements that we've had. So my difference of opinion is that you want to strongly qualify early, but I think that varies based on industry and the relationships that you want.
That's a super valid point. I completely agree with you on that, actually. I'm suggesting some best practices I've learned over the years, mostly working for product companies, and from a lot of conversations with agencies over the years. But I'd love to hear everyone else's opinion on this. If there's other specific parts of like BANT that you have been able to mechanize or pieces that you haven't. And I'm curious to how you get through those initial qualification hurdles without a mechanical process like that.
Well, it really varies based on the company that I work for and the clients that we have. I currently work at Four Kitchens. I've been there 2.5 years. We've got a very strong qualifying funnel that I'm not really involved in at Four Kitchens. In my past life, I spent about 5 years as a design manager at an agency in the Midwest,
Sure.
Where I went on a lot of client engagements, like going to lunch, trying to sweeten the pot, things like that. And a lot of that process was trying to create like initial engagements, sort of like saying like, hey, we want to put together a strategy document for you before we put together a large scope of work. The strategy document itself takes time and effort and is actually a deliverable. Are you willing to pay for that? And if they're willing to pay for it, then they're a conscientious and responsible client. If they aren't willing to pay for it, then we had to gauge the risk of investing 40 to 100 hours or more into that as a bet against, winning a $200,000, $500,000 project.
Sure, and especially as the numbers go up. I actually think you're agreeing with me to a certain extent here. As the projects go up, the sales cycle gets longer.
Yeah.
If I was going to sell you this cup, do you want to buy this cup?
Yes.
Then we're done. I'm going to sell you the cup right now. That was the entire sales process in less than 10 seconds. If it's 100, if I said this, I sell artisanal cups that are $100 million, and it's going to take 18 months to do the financing to buy that. Can we start having that conversation today? It's probably no. One, this cup's not worth $100 million. It just isn't. But the longer the cycle, the longer this takes. So the person I was referring to at Stanford, she does very small sites, under 5 figures, I think, is what she said. I forget exactly. But she's doing smaller projects, and she grinds them out. And it's like, you're a small business, you got to get this stuff figured out, let's help you, let's get it done. Larger projects, obviously you have to spend some time getting that relationship going, but you said it very succinctly there, can they spend the money? Will they spend the money? How long does that take to get to be to that point? On a large project, you can get me to know pretty quick, or yes, how long it takes. That's what we used to say back in the terracotta days. But it's still very much a qualification process. Is it slower? Yes, but it's still qualified. Good point.
Yeah, just sort of to that point, I think what happens is that the larger the scale of the project, the less likely the client is to know what the budget should be.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at potentially a $500,000 budget, it could swing $50,000 this way or that way, and that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal.
Yeah.
And so you sort of can't, it's really hard. I think what you want to nail down is there a budget? The bigger the project, is there a budget? Is there a limit to budget? Before, because if somebody comes to you and says, well, we don't really know what the budget is, but we know that the need, the KPI is there, right? We understand that, and that's really clearly defined. Then they're willing to work with you on budget. Now there's going to come a point where you go, well, it's $500,000. Well, we only have $300,000. Okay, now we're talking scope and scale, and do we want to work together? But I think I think it's really hard to give a form field.
Sure.
It's really hard to completely mechanize budget as soon as you get sort of over a certain range of price.
Agreed.
And also not just the scale of like an individual project, but scale of relationship, because like my business is one that's more full service. And so, maybe the client's overall budget is a certain number, but where do they want to spend it within there? Is it, in marketing versus strategy?
There's also aligning expectations with budget. I've worked with clients who, you give me a laundry list of things that they want. It sounds like a fantastic project. And start to engage with them, and I'll throw out ballpark numbers, and their faces kind of blanch. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, okay, so we need to temper expectations here on what you can do, because building websites and doing marketing, it's, tell us your budget and your goals and we can see what we can do. Like, you might not be able to drive a Cadillac off the lot, but we've got a strong Honda.
Yeah. And another point I realized I didn't make in this, as I said, this is like as a step. Steps take a while. This machine is running pretty fast, but it still might take 3 or 4 weeks to get through this process. It might take 6 emails back and forth to get to that point. But it's still a point before you enter in that full discovery, which is paid discovery, and we're currently doing, where you have to get all the way through it. And yeah, absolutely. It definitely depends on size and scope and getting that appetite of like, can we get these questions answered? Can we even go through a process of getting these qualification questions answered is itself a step in the process. Like that takes a full email of like, can we sit down and talk about talk about this? We're not talking about the actual project yet, we're talking about what we need and can you actually engage in all of the parts around qualification.
I'm not gonna, this is a question or statement, kind of related.
It's a conversation.
As a designer,
Sure.
I think when we talk about KPIs, it's really hard a lot of times. What we do isn't, I don't want to say it's not measurable, but it's fluffy, it's relative in a lot of times. We know as designers that the work we're doing impacts the performance of the site or the, return that the customer is getting. But having that without having some sort of user feedback sessions or things like that is kind of hard. So when we get into these situations where we're building potentially $1 million site, the client may not be building in that sort of user testing that design needs to really inform whether it's hitting that KPI. And I think probably there's a number of people in the room that can identify with that. And how do we make that more a part of our process? How do we get people to understand that it's not a Google analytic that you can just pluck out of a spreadsheet, really. It's more than that. And how do we attach the value we're having not only internally to our organization, but also pass that value on to our clients?
I have a couple quick thoughts on that, and I'll kick it over to you. First is if you were just doing just the design, there's a great talk about that called FU Pay Me. You can
Oh, yeah.
look up.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's like just they agreed you deliver 12 images, get the money, walk away. That's what we do. In the larger projects, that's where we go back to, I think, again, not a ton of personal experience in this, go back to project management teams, like, look, we gotta measure this. Like, let's get some hot jar in here. Let's like get some A/B testing. If you're not A/B testing things, how on earth do you know if it works? How on earth do you know if that's the right image? How do you know that the old stuff didn't work better? And if they're not willing to do that, are they really willing to engage in a process where they are eventually going to say, yes, you did well or you did bad, or they're just going to be perpetually unhappy? I don't think there's a right answer to that. I don't think there's a quick win to that either. But that's a conversation to have internally with your team.
Sure. So in response to the question of the role of design and making sure the client sees value, research and user testing is one of the first things that gets cut if it's a line item in a budget.
Yeah.
The trick is that has to not be a line item in the budget, and you have to justify that by showing results that relate to that. So you can say that we redesigned this website and they managed to get 32% more leads in the first 6 months after launch. And a big indicator of that is the design of it. So things like performance, the aesthetics, the usability. And you can say that we went through this research to build this site and it yielded these results. So what you have is an actual case study that you can go to and say, this informed the design process. Design without goals, design without research is aesthetics, it's art.
Mm-hmm.
I love art as much as the next person, but that's not why I want people to pay me. I want people to pay me so that I can achieve their goals through design. So you need to try and make it built into the process, even if it's just a small amount. And sometimes you don't get that user testing, and when you don't get that user testing, one of the things that you can rely on is proving results through past behavior. Mm-hmm. So we redesigned the site, we gave it a new coat of paint, and the key performance indicators went up. We didn't do any user testing, but we did have an impact through the aesthetics and our experience. This is not a methodology that we recommend, but our experience improved what they had. And so by having those things at your fingertips just to say, the last 5 clients experienced like gains in their KPIs through our design, but they didn't engage us with research. You can at least talk to the expertise in the design that you're doing. So, so that rich history helps as well. A book recommendation that I have is You're My Favorite Client by Mike Montero, the same guy who did F You Pay Me.
Yeah.
It is valuable for reading and then giving to your clients and telling them, listen, do you want strong engagement with my services? Here's a book that will take you 2 evenings to read, 1 evening if you're really motivated, and you will get so much value out of it.
Well, it's a good idea to recommend reading that to your client.
I'm actually like this close to making it like mandatory that I take them with me to discovery workshops and hand it out to clients.
That makes sense. That's good. You're giving people extra data.
We have clients that are kind of frustrated sometimes, and the people we're talking to don't seem to know their KPI. And yet, like, I'll get a task as a developer, hey, put this Facebook pixel code in somewhere, you know? It's like, and you wonder, well, what are they doing with that? And somebody else must have told them to do that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know whether we should be more aggressive at trying to herd their cats, you know what I mean? Or not, or just do what they tell us.
Wow. I wouldn't see that as aggression. If I was a client and somebody came back, it's like, I don't understand why you think you need this. And I don't understand what we're trying to really do here. I wouldn't feel that, I would, as a client, would not feel that as aggressive. I would feel that as like, well, they're actually listening to me. And that builds so much trust. Other thoughts on that, actually?
Well, the time the conversations together, to me, it's a question of like how many KPIs can you really manage at once? Because I can do anything, but I can't do everything within the budget, and it kind of brings all that together. So you want to throw a random code in the background because you think somebody downstream might want to track it? On the one hand, good, we're thinking ahead, and the other thing, that's just like taking your scope out of control. So I guess my question for you, for the group, is, you know, where's that intersection of discovery to scope to budget to coaching on the KPIs to get to a reasonable number that are meaningful and addressable, but at the same time prepares you for pivots, paid scope expansion as opposed to just scope creep. You know, how do you lay the foundation so...
I will always push back that scope creep is death.
Yes.
Avoid it, like,
but paid scope expansion is lifeblood for
yeah,
an independent.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm taking this. I've never been an independent consultant on things for my full-time income, so I'll say it with all a grain of salt. But absolutely, getting them back to the table and saying, we need to do this, I really do think comes back down to the why. I talk about that more in the discovery talk I'm doing tomorrow, but helping them paint the picture of where they're at right now, where they're actually trying to get to, and then while you're sitting in front of them, they think you can help them get to that new reality. And if they want to piecemeal and like, I think this little thing and this little thing and this little thing and this little thing, and you say no, like we want to get to this reality and there's the roadmap for it. If we want to go somewhere else, we're gonna have to redraw the map. Let's go back and rescope the whole thing. Some clients will be like, no. And then you'd be like, all right, we're doing the original scope, and I'll move on. That is the one freedom that small agencies and independents have that so many developers I talk to don't, is you can say no. And if we come at it from a place of abundance, there are about 168 million businesses in the world that don't have websites versus all the ones that do. If you're coming from a place of abundance, there's a ton of work out there. It's not easy to find. I'm not saying that's simple. None of this is a panacea for all your business problems at all. Hopefully it's some best practices you can take pieces of and move on from. But yeah, other people's opinions and thoughts on
I mean, how many KPIs do you guys typically?
How many KPIs? Yes, sorry.
Coach to? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to speak to like focusing clients on the right tasks. So, so we use Jira to manage, you know, our projects, and so we create a multitude of tickets. And not all tickets are created equal. Some of them are small little things, little tweaks that you have to do. Other things are larger, more important. And whenever a client starts to lose focus and gets lost in the weeds and the minutia, and if I can't like very pleasantly corral them to focus on the important things, I like to send them an article on Medium called the $1 Million Ticket. It's where a developer talks about that there were a wealth of Jira tickets in this project, and there was one ticket that was far more important than the rest. It was improving their e-commerce like sign-up forms. They went through the sprint, they took care of this one ticket, and as soon as they did that, the conversion rates went up because the process was smoother, abandonment went down, and over the course of the next year, they made an extra $1 million because they focused on that one ticket instead of prioritizing other ridiculous things instead. And so I like to use that as a reminder to our clients that let's stay focused on the reason that we're engaging.
Yeah. Very good point.
I think some of this comes down to, so I think in two different situations. I think in your case, you're looking at being a developer and sort of being handed something, and in other cases, you're sort of this independent agency and you're working with your client. If you're, and I don't want to say just a developer in a negative way, but I mean, if you are just, if you're on a team of developers and you're handed something, sometimes you're sort of not allowed to have an opinion, which is unfortunate because I think that you can provide insight, and hopefully whoever is the project manager or the client contact will appreciate that. We were just saying, like, I would never, if a developer came back to me and said, can I ask why you're doing this? I would never go, well, that's none of your business, just do your work. I don't have that feedback, right? I want to know from an expert, if I perceive them to be an expert, the reasons behind it. So on the flip side, as an independent agent, you're supposed to be the expert. Like, you are perceived as that. And if you're not selling yourself that way to your client, if you're not pitching that your knowledge and expertise is really what they're leaning on, that you're not just sort of the arms and legs to get the job done, but you actually have experience here that they should be looking to, that's where the KPIs come in. So, like, I'm going to lean on KPIs in marketing because that's what I do. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to tell them to set KPIs for sales as well, or for development, web analytics either. But you need to focus on something. So I focus on where my core strengths are, which is setting their marketing goals, and then from there, as they start to see those, we can then fall into the sales or development goals that make sense. And they also don't tend to understand, like most of my clients anyway, they're not super technical in the KPI area. So just even setting an initial goal for them that's very clear and easy to measure, and I use like online dashboards and stuff so they can see simple things like, all right, here's a little wheel that will show you when you hit, a little dial that shows you when you hit your goal for website visitors or email open rates or whatever, right? It just helps them hone in on the idea of measurement. Once you get them on 1 or 2 points and they clearly understand, they'll start asking you what else to measure. Because they're going to start saying, oh, can you measure this? Well, how do we get to that number? They'll give it to you, and then you'll be able to do that for them.
Unfortunately, we got to end conversation here. But thank you very much. This is hopefully a valuable conversation for y'all as well. I always learn stuff from this. One last tiny point I meant to mention earlier on the design front. There's an amazing talk by a guy named Mike Demopoulos, mostly in the WordPress space. He actually comes from Joomla, called "Which Way Does Your Duck Face?" D-U-C-K. Which way does your duck face? With about A/B testing and the importance of not caring why something works, just that it works, and the numbers on that. But all right, I want to get that in on this talk. But thank you very much, everybody.